Really quick before this video starts, I spent a lot of time making this video, and subscribing to my channel, if you like the video of course, will show that it's worth it to spend more time to make better videos. Enjoy. Hey, so I have always loved video games and gaming in general, if you couldn't tell that from the other videos on my channel, and I decided that I wanted to research something about them. Instead of choosing something like game feel or lore or something cool like that, I decided to research the ways different games keep players in bounds. The way different games keep players in bounds, which from here on out I'll be referring to as just boundaries, are very important to games in general. Without them, game developers would have no way to make sure that players actually play the games that they spent so long making. But some boundaries are better than others, so I thought it would be fun to go over some examples of good, mediocre, and bad boundaries. Good boundaries feel like they belong in the game world, while bad ones are just generic and boring. Let's start off with an example of a bad boundary: Assassin's Creed Brotherhood's desynchronization barrier. While it does make sense in the context of the game's story, it is just plain boring. I think all boundaries that are just plain walls in general are really boring, regardless of if they make sense in context of the game world or not. Now let's move on to an example of a good boundary: Subnautica and Subnautica Below Zero's World Edge, aka Ecological Dead Zone.
Warning, entering ecological dead zone. Adding report to databank.
Just that voice clip alone is terrifying, let alone the actual dead zone. Once you're in the dead zone, 3 adult ghost leviathans, or void chelicerates if you're playing Below Zero, spawn and start attacking you. These make sense in context of the game world, and also provide additional gameplay opportunities, such as challenging yourself to live in the dead zone. These boundaries are a fantastic example of how to make a boundary right. Now let's head back to bad boundaries. Minecraft is an amazing game with an awful boundary. The world border is simply a blue wall, as basic as it gets. The only thing that slightly redeems the world border is the fact that it is 30 million blocks away from spawn, meaning you will most likely not encounter it during normal play. Still, that doesn't negate the fact that it is a really boring way to make a boundary. On the topic of bad boundaries, let's move on to Terraria, a game that is often compared to Minecraft, although I believe that the two games are very different. Terraria's boundary is simply an ocean that cuts off after a while. Sometimes you find underwater caves in the ocean, but other than those caves, the ocean is pretty boring. Unlike Minecraft's world border, you will most likely come across the ocean during normal play. However, the ocean border is partly saved by the fact that Terraria is a 2D game, meaning that the boundary is sort of forced to be kind of basic. Now it's time for a mediocre boundary: Motocross Madness's Invisible Wall. While this boundary is just a wall that doesn't make sense in the game world, it is saved due to the fact that it launches you halfway across the map, which seems like a lot of fun, though I've never actually played the game to experience it. You probably have noticed by now that most of the boundaries that I've been talking about are not very good. While boundaries are important to games, the realism of boundaries are often not. Developers normally do not care about making boundaries interesting, which makes sense. Why spend time on that when you could spend time making the game itself better? However, the fact that developers have no reason to make good boundaries makes it all the more special when that extra time is used to make one. Baba Is You is a puzzle game that uses boundaries as a core gameplay mechanic. Each level sets boundaries on what you can or cannot do in the form of simple rules, such as Baba Is You, which forces you to play as the character Baba, or Wall is Stop, which makes sure that you cannot move past walls. However, these rules exist in the game world, meaning you can move pieces of these rules around in order to change your boundaries. For example, in this level, the rules are Baba Is You, Wall is Stop, and Flag is Win. However, the flag is outside of the walls, making it impossible to reach. However, if I change the rules from Baba Is You to Wall Is You, I now control the walls, making it easy to reach the flag. This mechanic opens up so many gameplay opportunities, which makes it an amazing example of a boundary. Every single Battle Royale game I can think of have mediocre boundaries. Battle Royale games normally have something deadly, such as poison gas or a storm, closing in around the map. While being pretty boring, they do make the gameplay more exciting by bringing players together, which leads to more fighting. I would probably like these boundaries better if they were more original, but like I said earlier, every single Battle Royale game that I can think of uses the same system under a different name. Five Nights at Freddy's security breach boundaries are interesting because they do not work in the slightest. I'm kind of beating a dead horse by saying this, but security breach is a buggy mess. Simply jumping while entering Freddy, which is the main mechanic of the game, completely breaks the game and deloads all of the map, allowing you to simply walk through all the boundaries in the game. If you don't want to deload the entire game, you can also use Freddy to clip through doors that you cannot open, skipping major parts of the game. The boundaries in the game are so broken that you can beat the entire game in just 3 minutes. I really want to call these boundaries amazing, because I think I've had more fun breaking the game than actually playing it, but I kind of have to call them bad considering they failed to do their job. So that's all I have to say about video game boundaries. There are not many unique boundaries to talk about. Bye and subscribe.